Welcome to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast with Sakar Cowley. During this program, you will hear guest experts sharing their experiences, best practices, and market insights. We discuss investing in multifamily apartment complexes and how a busy professional can passively invest hassle-free in various opportunities. Your host, Sakar Cowley, owns millions of dollars of assets and has done thousands of value-add projects over 20 years now. So listen in for insights. Here's your host, Sakar Cowley.
Welcome to another edition of Premium Cashflow Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of world-renowned speaker, Darren Jacklin. Welcome to the show, Darren. I appreciate your time today.
I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So for those of you who don't know who Darren is, Darren has been working in the philanthropy, real estate, and world speaking circuit for the last 25 years. He has traveled 4 continents and personally trained and developed over 1 million people in over 50 countries. Wow. He has mentored entrepreneurs, business owners on specific and measurable strategies that have turned into increased income for businesses and turned a lot more obstacles into cash flow and a lot more profits. Darren has been featured in a lot of media, Wall Street Journal, Yahoo Finance, NBC, CBS, Global TV, Tiger 21, a lot of family offices. The list goes on. And Darren has been featured as an international celebrity in the 2015 movie, The Treasure Map. Currently, Darren sits on a lot of international boards of directors and advisory boards of public and private companies. So it will be a fun conversation. I am personally looking forward to it. Thank you, Darren, for your time. It is a pleasure to have you on the show. For those of our listeners who have not had a much more diverse and a detailed background of you, please share with us more details as to what your focus is.
Sure, you bet. Great. Thank you so much, Sakar, for allowing me to be here. So I'll share a little bit about the backstory that people don't see. Is they see the highlights, kind of like in sports. You see all the sports scoreboard and you see the reel on TV. Over the last several years of my life, I'm 47 years of age now, but turned 48 in August. I've had a lot of adversities, failures, challenges, setbacks in my life. It's been a roller coaster at times as well.
Sure.
For some people who don't know, if they've not done any research or due diligence on me, I was a kid who barely passed public high school. In fact, grade 1, I failed grade 1 of public school and was misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability. And from grade 1 through grade 12, I was in special education classes.
Wow.
And so when I was 7 years old, I created my first little company called Rent-A-Kid. And I would go out and cut grass, shovel sidewalks in the wintertime, shovel the snow, and deliver newspapers 6 days a week. And what I realized by being a D student, or let's say the dumbest kid in school, was I could hire the A students, the smart kids, to work with me and build teams and teamwork. And so by the time I was 9 years of age, I hired the best smart kids in my school because they weren't always in the same class because I was in special education classes. I hired the kids in the school to do work with me. I'd go out and knock on all the doors and do all the cold calling in the residential areas.
You had the marketing and salesman's piece, right?
You betcha. And I was the guy that I didn't run the day-to-day operations. I had the smart people run the day-to-day operations for me. Then they would just give me a report and I would just delegate responsibility but maintain the control. And so today I'm grateful to, serve on 4 different paid boards of directors, one being a public company on NASDAQ. We took that company from a startup to a $1 billion company. Get it uplisted to NASDAQ. It's in the real estate space. We have over 30,000 licensed real estate agents across the United States of America, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom, and expanding internationally in other countries as well, and also continents, which I'm grateful for. Wow. And then I also have a real estate portfolio, primarily of passive investments of car washes, REITs, mix, mortgages, and then we do philanthropy, real estate investing. Tatiana and I last year in 2019, Tatiana is my partner in life. We created our own private family foundation here in Canada, and we've contributed between now and 2030 to put $100 million through that foundation for global philanthropy projects.
Wow.
So what we do is we're looking at building out a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio over the next couple of years of income-producing assets that will cash flow back to an investor. So he or she as an investor gets a return on investment, but also some of that cash flow flows through to the foundation for global philanthropy projects. And that's really what inspires us, is that Tatiana and I are not motivated by making money. We're motivated and inspired by making an impact. And one of the things that we live by in our lives and our relationship and our group of companies is how many lives can we positively impact and influence throughout the journey of our life. So when we get to the end of our life, and hopefully we're on our deathbed, and that's the way we go, that we can look back and reflect on the experiences and memories of living an extraordinary quality of life, but also all the people's lives that we touch globally across this planet through philanthropy and through doing different humanitarian projects to make a positive difference. We look at it as our planetary assignment. So we love real estate because it's bricks and mortar. And we love cash flow, primarily passive cash flow, that it produces monthly or quarterly cash flow or dividends. And that's what I like to do, is that is work in that area. So that gives you a little context more about my background of, I live to give and make a difference in people's lives.
Awesome. Thank you. And I appreciate you sharing that perspective. And I always like to say that, sure, real estate is a medium of things, but obviously the greater good and the giving back and the philanthropy element that you said is definitely something that I think keeps us going and makes us regenerated, as especially as we grow older. I think that's the aspect of giving back that we always love. So Darren, if I may, we always talk about on the show about, of course, multifamily investment, passive investments, why real estate, what submarkets, and, all the details. If I may today, I want to delve into, sort of your expertise in terms of, you have coached hundreds and hundreds of CEOs so far, and you've seen a pattern of people, and how we can achieve high performance, focus on automations, business processes, and sort of delegating the duties and things like that. So I want to turn our podcast and discussion towards some of those aspects, and I feel that audience will love to hear what you have to say and what experiences you have had. So I appreciate your time and expertise in this. So with that, Darren, I want to sort of, preface this by saying that, a lot of our investors are independent business owners who are trying to do our best and, maximize the time, the people, the resources that we have. So we have our own self-education to do, our own limiting self-beliefs to clear sometimes, and sort of, charting that course, that whether we want to be like how big we want, what we want to achieve, right? What we want to give back, all those elements that you said, right? So I want to ask you that, you've seen many businesses so far, right? You've seen so many people. Give us a good sense of, what it takes for someone to become a high performer, or what are some of the things that you have seen folks who have the best performance or the great habits, and what that separates people from, just the mediocre or just doing the busy activities, as we call it?
Great question. So yeah, really, really great question. So one of the things that I've seen is a constant theme across the planet, whether you're in Dubai or Saudi Arabia, you're in Singapore, you're in Australia, you're in all the different cities or countries or continents, is what are we solving for? So when you talk to a high performer, man or woman, it could be an Elon Musk, it could be an Oprah Winfrey, whoever this person is, what are they solving for? So I deal a lot with different family offices, a lot of high net worth and ultra high net worth families and individuals around the world. And one of the things they're always doing is that, what are we solving for?
So the clarity of, or the focus of the direction and the goals we are shooting, is that kind of where you're going?
Absolutely, yeah. So like, for example, myself with Link Foundation, the foundation that Tatiana and I created, our family foundation, what we're solving for is global philanthropy. And what I mean by that is, if we look at, child hunger, child poverty, child sex trafficking, to mitigate that in regards to no child should go to bed hungry, no child should be trafficked or sex trafficked or organ harvested. So we solve for that in regards to, whether it's slowing down the child sex trafficking industry by putting some speed bumps along the way for people that do that and prey on those innocent children. Another thing is creating sustainability in third world countries. So that's what we solve for. And so when somebody's self-employed or an entrepreneur, you got to figure out, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Also, what are you solving for? So I'll give you an example. one of the things that we looked at with the residential real estate company that I serve on the board of directors for as a public company, what we solved for is we wanted to disrupt an industry that had been around for decades that was not taking care of the agent. It was transactional versus relational. And we wanted to create the relationship business to solve for, to give a licensed residential real estate agent an opportunity for him or her that when they got through the length of their career, whether it's 10 or 15 or 25 years into their career, being a commissioned salesperson, they had something to look forward to towards the end of their career to create some financial security for them and their family. So we were solving for it. Some of the companies that I invest in or also serve on the board of directors for, what we solve for is to make a disruption of a change. And one of the things I've noticed with high performance people is if you can focus on something to disrupt that industry, right? Disrupt it. Like what's not working. Like a lot of times employees will work in a factory or work in a company or a business organization. They're like, oh my gosh, upper management never listens to me. The union never listens to me. My boss never listens to me. The owner of the company never listens to me. So what happens is that person says, you know what? Enough is enough. What if I, save up some money to have a 3 to 6 months reserve of cash as an emergency fund, and I venture off on my own and go on those skinny branches to venture off from being an employee to an entrepreneur to self-employed and go out there. And a lot of times we see disgruntled employees. I know from my corporate training background where I see disgruntled employees. They're like, okay, enough is enough. The company's not going to change. Our culture is not going to change. Upper management or ownership's not going to listen to us. So why don't I go out there and pivot and make a difference? And so one of the ways in terms of building financial wealth is looking at what are we solving for, but also because there's no spare customers. That's something that people understand is that whenever you're building something, there's no spare customers, there's no spare clients.
I see.
That's why
you elaborate what you mean by that spare clients or spare customers?
So a lot of times when people are building a company or an organization, especially with this online internet marketing today, like people, Amazon affiliates and people like that, they think, oh, there's, 7.8 billion people roughly on the planet. Again, that's changing all the time. So there's lots and lots and lots of people on the planet. But what I mean by there's no spare customers or clients is it takes a lot for a customer client acquisition, time, money, and financial dollars to bring that person on and then to onboard them as a paying client or customer to your business. A lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of expense, and human resources or labor to do that, right? Unless it's automated. So when a mindset of when a business owner can think, oh my gosh, there's no spare customers. So one of the things that really frustrates me is I travel the world a lot. And when I go, I'm in different time zones, different cities, different countries, sometimes, depends on what's going on. If I'm jet lagged or if I'm in different time zone, different country, my sleep cycle or my rhythm changes, right? So if I live here in West Vancouver, Canada, but sometimes I'm over in Uganda, East Africa, or I'm over in different places. Well, when I wake up, one of the things I want to do is if I'm ordering room service in my hotel, I don't care what time of day it is. If I want something, I want to order it, I'll pay a little extra service fee for it, but I want that. I want the convenience. I'm staying in a nice hotel and I've worked my butt off to get to this level of life and stage of life to be able to earn that and to afford that. I want that. So what happens is I hear the word no. And that's thing with there's no spare customers, no spare clients is, are you always telling your paying customer clients, no, we can't do that. No, that doesn't work here. No, that's not how it happens. Because what happens is we're in a competitive world today of a global marketplace. And if you keep telling your paying customers or clients, no, we can't do that here, guess what? They're going to go online to Google or go online to the internet. They're going to search and find somebody who can say yes. And guess what? They're going to disappear because people are voting with their wallets. People are voting with their purses today. They're voting with their financial dollars saying, okay, when I do business with this person, is it a fair means of exchange? And so people need to look is that when you've got your clients or customers, are you building a relational business or a transactional business? I'll give you a quick example. I'm on social media and I get approached constantly, people on LinkedIn and Facebook and other platforms, and they're pitching and selling. Like they don't even build relationship equity. Like they don't even ask me, Sakar, how are you? Or what are you up to? Or what are you working on? Or tell me more about you, right? Whether it's with my group of companies or with our private family foundation, Link Foundation, nobody does any discovery. There's no getting relatedness.
Right.
And so what happens is if we're not related, you don't create any possibilities. It's like, and what I mean by relatedness is building rapport. It's like if you want to go on a date with somebody and all of a sudden you want to get intimate with that person, but there's no rapport, no relatedness, well, it's like a one-night stand in a sense. And a lot of times in business, people create one-night stands on social media by trying to meet me because they want to raise money. So they're coming to me as an investor.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I do is rather than pitch or sell, I educate and I inform.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when I'm dealing with high net worth or ultra high net worth investors and I want them to co-invest on a project with me, for example, that I'm raising capital for, what I would do is I'd sit down with you, Sakar, and I'd meet with you on a discovery call, whether it's on Zoom video conferencing or if it's face-to-face. I'd say, Sakar, you know what, listen, I know we've only got an hour and a half here for our lunch meeting, but what I'd like to do is just invest the first 20 minutes, just getting related to you and just learning more about you. You know, what your appetite, what your interest is for investing, what you have maybe currently in your portfolio, if you're comfortable with sharing that with me, you know, what your risk tolerance level is. And also really I'd like to unfold with you and have a conversation with you in regards to really looking at the downside protection strategy of how we protect to mitigate potential exposure to risks and liabilities of your money. I don't want to focus so much on the blue sky, the vision, sell the dream. I want to focus on making sure that your capital, your hard-earned dollars, that money is protected. Because I've known from experience, Sakar, there's three types of money. There's calm money, there's cautious money, and there's nervous money. And I'd like to get related to you, Sakar, and I'd like to make sure that I earn the right in our relationship as I build relationship equity to you, that your money, no matter what we do together, no matter how big or small the money, if we decide to get involved with each other and money changes hands, I want at all times your money to be calm money. I never want your money to be cautious or nervous, or you being up late at night, or your spouse or partners having pillow talk with you saying, you know, Sakar, should we have invested with Darren Jacklin? Was that the right decision? I'm second guessing myself. My gut or my intuition saying something. So it's all about how you spend the time investing to build the relationships up front. Because at the end of the day, we're in the people business. People join people based on, because without integrity, nothing works.
Sure. And I echo your sentiment where I think you are saying that people have so many choices and options. I think from a customer retention perspective, we are in a very sort of a fragile territory that at a click of a button or a phone call away, you have many options available that you can dial in and, you know, sort of get. So the idea that, okay, having all the options or the many possible options available so that you can serve any choosable customer seems pretty right. And now, Darren, I want to maybe, you know, play sort of a villain role here, right?
Sure.
So you said something about, okay, we are striving for impact, right? But let's say a common person listening to this podcast says, "Oh, geez, I want to raise that next $1,000 for my next deal. Forget about my impact and the other worldly change that I want to do." And where I'm going with this, Darren, is that I want to ask you that what sort of tangible steps that you have advised or seen other people do wherein they are still achieving the big sort of their why or the goals that they want. But, you know, there has to be that point A to point Z or the baby steps taken in order. Could you maybe elaborate us on some of that perspective as to what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest thing is, you know, I was guilty as charged of doing things by myself because I always wanted to be in control.
Sure.
And I learned early on not to be the smartest person in the room. You want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Sure.
And what I've done now in terms of accelerating performance and results, what we do with a group of companies, our investments and our foundation, is building teams of like-minded people to create that culture and to create that environment where there's psychological safety, that people feel safe and they feel permission to grow and expand themselves. And a lot of times what people do is when they get into business is it's their baby. Like they birth this startup business, you know, they're going out raising money through friends and family, and they're so protective of that startup opportunity. The challenge is we all have blind spots as human beings and we don't see the blind spots. And so what I've learned now is the term called leveraging, where I get around people, just like I serve on paid boards of directors of public and private companies and advisory boards, because the CEO or the founders of these companies know that they're not the smartest people in the room. They know that if they have a smart dream team of like-minded people with years of history and experience and have the scars on their back to prove it, that they can accelerate performance and results, but also mitigate potential risks to liabilities and exposures to that. So the big thing is for people today is get a coach, get a mentor, join a mastermind. And whether you do it online on the internet or you do it offline, is get around other people. So if you're not good with numbers and you're not intimate with your own personal finances, then you want to bring somebody to you. You know, once you've vetted and done your due diligence on him or her, but bring somebody onto your team locally or virtually that has an understanding of financial numbers. If you have to raise company for a company, no matter what stage you're at, you're always going to be raising capital, looking for investors' dollars coming in. So make sure you have somebody who's seasoned in experience with integrity and with a track record of results that can come in and speak that investor language and know how to structure and also protect the investor's money as you grow out and raise capital. It's very important. But building your team is so important, but also in your own personal life and professional life. One of the things when it comes to, I'll use an example of raising money, because I speak at a lot of conferences around the world about raising money and how to do it. When I first started, I didn't have any money. So I stayed at the cheapest hotels I could. And because they had free continental breakfast. I'll tell you, I got busted one day. I'll share a quick story with you. I was at a Holiday Inn one time, and I'm not picking on a Holiday Inn. I'm just using it as an example because it's a real life example of my life. I was staying at a Holiday Inn hotel one time in the United States, and I was flat broke financially, living on a shoestring, and I had to have this high net worth accredited investor meet me at the hotel because I couldn't have paid for the cab ride or the Uber ride to go to meet him where he wanted me at his office. So I brought the investor to the Holiday Inn. So the investor came in, a high net worth accredited investor came in. I was wearing my high school graduation suit because that's all I could afford. And I still had that suit like 10 years after I graduated from high school. And I meet with this investor and I'm raising, I think it was from him, I wanted to raise $400,000. And we were raising a few $1 million in total for our project, but we had a couple other people we wanted to see. And we're looking at who would come in for placements of different money. And so I'm sitting down with this guy and I'm pitching and selling versus educate and inform. This is my early days where I was inexperienced and I was just hungry and I was aggressive and I was impatient and I had total lack and scarcity mindset versus abundance prosperity mindset. And so I really got schooled. And so that day I'm pitching and selling this guy at the free breakfast. And he looks at me and he says, "Can I stop you for a minute, Darren?" I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Listen, I'm going to give you some feedback and you take it for whatever it's worth. I'm not here to put you down. I'm here to inspire you and empower you up." He says, "Number one, you're not going to close $1 million deal at a $10 breakfast." I'm like, wow, I'm not going to close $1 million, like $1 million deal at a $10 breakfast. And he goes, "Number two is," he says, "I know right now you're financially struggling. I can tell by the clothes that you're wearing. I can tell by the hotel that you're staying at." And I'm like, "Well, how do you know that?" He goes, "Darren, I used to be like you. How do you think I got here?" Right? So because behavior never lies. And so what I'm sharing with people, sometimes we hear the saying called fake it till you make it. The challenge is it's about authenticity and vulnerability and being our word of integrity. So what I did is I could have lied to that investor right then and said, "Oh, you know what you're talking about." And I could have BS'd him and given him a bunch of fluff and so that. And then all of a sudden he would have just totally not talked to me ever again. But what I did is I put all my cards on the table and was totally vulnerable. I said, "You know, you're absolutely right. I have no money in my bank account right now. I'm staying at a cheap hotel because I can't afford anything right now. I'm on a shoestring budget. I can't even afford the breakfast." And I was just fully transparent with the guy. And that's a big thing in business is behavior never lies. And someone like myself, who's very street smarts, you know, I've had the roller coaster rides. I've been on welfare. I've been homeless. I've been behind paying my bills. I've owed people money. You know, I've been out of integrity in my life. I've broken promises in my past, and I've cleaned all this up as we learn through personal development and taking different courses, having different mentors and coaches. And so what I invite people to consider in their own lives as they're rising and leveling up is authenticity and vulnerability are so important. Always put all your cards on the table, right? Just be full transparency with an investor. Or if you're hiring someone, say, "Listen, we want to hire you on as a salesperson right now. And listen, we're really tight. Like we're not sure we're going to be able to make payroll. And we got to generate some sales here to get some sales coming in to make the cash register ring so we can generate some money to keep staying in business." But I found from experience over the years, just be upfront and honest with people what's going on. And then manage the story or the mind chatter in our head, because there's really no failure. There's action and inaction. Right? Failure is a story we make up in our head. Same thing with fear. There's no such thing as fear. Fear is an anticipation of pain. Right? It's anticipated pain. Fear does not live in action. And so the biggest thing is we have to deal with ourselves as human beings. And we're make wrong machines. We lie to ourselves. We want to put on the mask and we want to look good and we don't want to look bad. And so we have this fake it to make it. Like, you know, I used to wear the fake watch until a guy busted one time. He's like, "Why are you wearing a fake Rolex?" You know, and so I stopped doing all that stuff to try and impress other people who weren't impressed because they could see right through it.
Sure. Now, I mean, it's very interesting, Darren, and thank you for sharing all the insights and being so humble and honest with us. And that goes to your authenticity component right there, right? And I share your feelings where I have come from a similar background where I came. I mean, I immigrated to United States basically $0, I should say, on borrowed money, and kind of worked my way through into investing and professional career and things like that. And many of the fellow listeners on the podcast as well. There are a lot of success stories that go around on similar shared grounds, right? I want to ask you that. What were the lessons you have learned from all the trials, tribulations that you have had so far? You said you were broke, homeless, lots of integrity lapses and things like that. Give us some personal touches, and if you can color some in a few minutes about, what have you learned? What has the hardship taught you in your life?
Good question. Very, very good question. Numbers don't lie. People do. Pay attention to numbers, especially if you're in business. Pay attention to numbers. I was in my early days, my 20s, my 30s, I was never intimate with finances, right? Bills would come in the mail back then before they're electronic, and I wouldn't pay attention to them. I never paid attention to bank accounts because I didn't want to know, so I just rounded up. And now I'm very intimate with finances. And so that was a big learning because I made up a story going back to my childhood, being a kid in school in math class, that I was never good. I was never a smart kid in school. So I made up a story and lived through that story. So that was a big thing for me. Another thing is realizing that, I'll use an example of my own family and not put my father down. I have a lot of respect for my father.
Sure.
When I was in grade 5 one day, I wrote a multiplication exam and I memorized the multiplication exam and I got 98% on the exam. And I was so excited because here I am, this dumbest kid in school in special education classes. My father was an engineer. My dad was a perfectionist while he was in his career as an engineer. And I remember getting 98% on that exam. I was so excited. Grade 5, I ran home from school that day to show my mother and my father. And my mom, who was a nurse, came home. She looked at it. She wanted to put it on the refrigerator as a proud mother. But she said, when your father comes home, show your father. And so my dad comes home same time every day, Monday to Friday. I run up to my father. I show my dad the report card, the piece of paper. My dad looks at it. He analyzes it. My father hands me back the piece of paper. And what he said to me, he said, son, you missed it by 2%. Then he walked away and washed his hands and sat down for family dinner. Well, at that moment, significant event happened in my life where I internalized that I'm not good enough. My father didn't say anything to me. He said, son, I'm proud of you, or you missed it by 2%. You could have done better, son. All he said is, son, you missed it by 2%, because he's a perfectionist. He wanted me to get 100%. And so what happens in our lives is specific events occur in our lives, right? And what happens is these events shape who we are as human beings.
Sure.
And so a big thing going forward, and if I'm off on your question, just course correct
No, you're
me.
fine. You're right on track. I'm definitely following you.
Yeah. The biggest thing is inside, I always say the game of life is won between the 2 ears. So I'll give you an example. When I joined my first paid board back in 2014, in 2011, I was flying on an international flight and I was journaling saying, I want to, in the next couple of years, get onto paid boards of directors of public and private companies and paid advisory boards.
Sure.
Now, I barely passed public high school. So I went off to all these different people I met through various different networking groups. And I'm like, so what are some of your goals, Darren? I'm like, I'm going to serve on paid boards of directors and paid advisory boards. And everybody laughed at me, made fun of me. Chris, they go, Darren, come on. You never went to Harvard University. You never went to Stanford University. You never went to Yale. You barely passed public high school. You have no PhD. You have no MBA. Who are you fooling, Darren? Come on, stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Stop kumbaya here. Get real with yourself, right? Be practical.
Right.
But I believed inside myself that I had a gift of a skill set that I wanted to be able to serve and grow and scale companies, even when everybody else didn't believe in me. And I was getting hugged and slugged and I was getting kissed and kicked. So I just wrote down, and one of the things that I do is these are my top 10 personal promises for myself. I read these every day, multiple times. I have 15 copies of this. Okay, so I carry a copy with me at all times. I have one in my gym bag, my shower, when I brush my teeth, when I'm flying, my carry-on luggage. And then I have my habits and my core values.
Wow, that's awesome to see.
What I also do too is I have my journal right here. I hand write out 730 times a year, twice a day, my personal promise. Now, I don't call them goals. I don't call them dreams. I call them personal promises to myself. I personalize it to myself. Because when I make a personal promise to myself, then it's something I want to honor and respect and keep. If I set a goal's out there. It's like a wish or a dream. And so when I realized that me being on the paid boards of directors, I went to all these people. Well, in 2013, I got a phone call one time from a friend of mine, a high net worth family, said, hey, listen, we're looking at investing in this company. We think that you should come back, be part of our due diligence team, right? And consider being a part of the due diligence team. So I did be part of the due diligence team, and that unfolded into a paid position, being on a board of directors. Now, why do I share this? All we are is a network of conversations. Everything we want, everything we need, everything we desire in our lives is going to come from strangers. But as children, we're taught, don't talk to strangers. Strangers are unsafe, right? Especially now with this global pandemic of the coronavirus, social distancing. So now we're taught to keep even more of a distance. Now, number one, we don't trust strangers.
Right.
Now we got a social distance because they may have an invisible disease that might kill me.
Right.
So now let's disconnect from human beings.
Right.
But other human beings have everything we want, everything we need, everything we desire in our lives. So one of the things I always share with people, and if people are taking notes, these are two valuable questions you want to write down and go to work on. Number one is, and here I'll just set the questions up. Number one is this, is to consider, for every question that you and I don't ask, the answer is always no. So the key thing in life and business and how I can grow and scale really fast is by making requests. Okay, requesting other human beings. So let's look at children, for example. You have one, or how many children do you have, Sakar?
I have 2 children.
You have 2 children. Do your children love ice cream?
Sure, absolutely.
Did they ever ask you for ice cream from the store? They were walking by an ice cream store. It's like, Dad, can we get some ice cream?
Absolutely.
Right? You might remember as yourself as a child, or people watch or listen, remember as a kid being, wanting ice cream from the store. And what happens is with our kids, or when we were kids, we just want to wear down our parents or grandparents until we get the ice cream. Dad, can we have ice cream? We just keep asking and asking and asking and asking and making requests.
Right.
Okay. So the thing is, for every question we don't ask, the answer is no. Now, when we make a request, only one of 3 things is going to happen. Step number 1 is people will accept the request. So let's look at real estate, for example, buying and selling real estate. Okay. So you and I put in an offer to buy a piece of real estate. The other party is going to either, step number 1, accept the offer. Step number 2 is they'll decline the offer.
Sure.
Or step number 3 is they'll counteroffer the offer.
Right.
So they'll accept, decline, or counteroffer.
Sure.
So when we start making requests, what we want to become is request-making machines. So if you're raising capital, if you're recruiting people for a business, if you're hiring people, if you're looking for customers or clients, if you want to grow and scale a business, or if you want to expand yourself, you want to get on more dates as if you're a single man or woman, start making requests and people either accept, decline, or counteroffer. So here's the 2 questions you want to write down. Question number 1 is, where am I not requesting in my life? Just take a look. Just look around your life, right? And just look at, where am I not requesting in my life, personally and professionally? Where are you not requesting? And just inspect your life. Second question is, who do you become as a human being? Who do you become when you don't request? You see, I see people all around me that are never requesting. And the thing is, think about this. So when we don't request, we're coming from lack and scarcity rather than abundance and prosperity. When we don't request, we're contracting rather than expanding. When we don't request, we're playing a very small game in our life.
Right.
Okay. I'll give you an example. Earlier in this interview, I talked about Link Foundation, us doing $100 million for global philanthropy in the next decade. I have people around me who are in the family office space that say, Darren, you're playing way too small. $100 million? Like, why would you even spend your time on giving away $100 million? Why not go for 500 billion or $1 billion and solve a bigger problem, like Elon Musk is going from Earth to space?
Sure.
So it's all in context of the people that we, I get around, some people think, how are you going to do 100 million? And they're really confronted by that. Like, you are never going to do that. Right? That's kumbaya. And other people get around me thinking, oh my gosh, right? Same thing with people watching right now in terms of what your fee for service is. Some of you are saying, well, I should raise my rates in my service. I could be an accountant, or I could be an engineer. I could be whatever you're doing as an entrepreneur, self-employed. You're saying, I want to raise my rates because I feel it. Well, guess what? You're going to get supported. You're going to get challenged. Some people are thinking, you can't raise your rates, Sakar. And they're like, my gosh, why don't you raise your rates? You're worthy of it.
I see.
And I can share all kinds of stories about that, my own experience, but go ahead. Other questions?
No, I was just going to ask that, speaking of tangibles now, as you stated, Darren, that you network with a lot of high net worth folks and, family offices and things like that. Share with us some some tangible tips as to
Sure.
How you nurture the relationships, or, what specific lead generation strategies you may be employing. Or how you are sort of keeping those relationships always sort of fresh of sorts. Give us some practical
Absolutely,
tips
yeah.
if you can.
So first thing is, be a go-giver, not a go-getter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you're dealing with family offices or high net worth or ultra high net worth families, or I even deal with some of the royal families around the world as well. The key thing is be a go-giver, not a go-getter.
Sure.
And
so give us some examples if you can.
Yeah.
Like, if you're sending any literature around that or any specific examples, I'd appreciate that.
You bet. So what I do is, if I meet people online, for example, the first thing I want to do is get their attention, right? And if they're a decision maker, get their attention. Second thing I want to do is arrange a discovery call. So for efficiency right now, we use like Zoom video conferencing or Skype or WhatsApp or some app or platform we use. And the whole thing I do is I want to arrange a discovery call to discover more about them by building rapport and getting related to them. I have nothing to pitch or sell or educate and inform. I just want to get related to build relationship equity. Okay. Dale Carnegie wrote a book many years ago called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Sure.
Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Sure.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Sure.
And so what I'm doing is, when I meet successful people, so give me an example myself, people may watch this interview and afterwards they want to connect with me through my website or through social media. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, Darren's a high net worth investor. I'm gonna pitch him on my product. Well, I'm just gonna delete it. Because the thing is, it's transactional versus relational. So here's the thing to look at. When you're dealing with high net worth people, ultra high net worth people, or you're dealing with family offices, the first thing to understand, they don't need you. They don't need you.
Sure.
They don't need you. You're a dime a dozen.
Sure. That's an interesting truth.
They don't need you. High net worth people like myself, in my, I have a phone of tens of thousands of people on my phone. I don't need other people. I've already got, I've trained over 1 million people in 25 years doing corporate training. So I built my inner circle. I built, I don't need another financial planner. I don't need another accountant. I don't need another bookkeeper. I don't need another, I've got access and resource to a lot of human beings around the planet. So first thing is to understand is, people that are very successful don't need you. Another thing is to consider in terms of something to look at. Sometimes people that are wealthy or affluent or very successful come across as they're snobbish or arrogant or cocky, and be like, oh yeah, that person's, why can't I get into that person's inner circle or their network, or why don't we respond? Here's something to consider to give people some understanding, is when somebody becomes really successful, they have more visibility and more exposure. And when there's more visibility and more exposure, it opens them up to more potential risks and liabilities. Whether it's themselves, it's their relationship, it's with their kids, it's with employees, it's with their companies, more visibility, more exposure. Okay. So the thing is, here's an analogy to give that people really understand, a visual analogy. Let's say, example, Sakar, you go ahead and you're going to have a swimming pool party, and you're going to invite all the people in your network to a swimming pool party. It's a networking event. You're going to have food and beverages there, may have live music, and everybody's going to have a great time at the swimming pool party. And everybody's having a really great time. It's a networking event. Maybe it's supporting a foundation or a charity or a fundraising event, initiative, or it's just a business networking thing. But one person decides to pee in the swimming pool. If no respect, they're like, I'm just going to pee in the pool. What happens? Everybody's going to get out of the swimming pool, and you ruin the experience for everybody.
Great.
This is why successful people protect their inner circle, and why it takes a while to build relationships or relationship equity rapport with them, why they're guarded, why they have gatekeepers, why they have handlers, why they have private security detail, why sometimes you don't see much online to research them or do due diligence on them, and why they're guarded is because they don't know if they invite you into their network, whether it's on the internet, on their social media, or into their network, or to be in proximity around them, they don't know if you're going to be that one person that's going to pee in the pool, that's going to affect the relationships that have taken them years to build. Sometimes a lot of time or a lot of money.
So
they're watching you to make sure you're not that person. And that's why it takes time to get around sometimes high net worth or ultra high net worth people or family offices or royal family members, because of that.
Very interesting. Now, just a related question, Darren. I know we are just about getting to a time on a podcast, but in your sort of experience, what have you seen? Like how do CEOs or high performers think different, or what are they sort of what is their philosophy? Could you maybe sort of share some?
First thing is very protective of their calendar. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one thing to look at is your calendar. Is that if I sit down with any high performance CEO, man or woman, mm-hmm. and I say, where are you at Thursday at 2:00, they can tell me exactly where they are. Mm-hmm. So they are meticulous, whether it's themselves or their assistants or executive assistants. They guard and protect their calendar. I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. There's a billionaire, I won't mention his name, but you would know who he is. I won't mention his name just because I don't have permission to share publicly his story. But so his name. Anyways, he was working on a bunch of mergers and acquisitions, mm-hmm. and very high profile billionaire. Mm-hmm. And what happened was he will sometimes speak, do a lot of media appearances and guest speaking appearances at universities and colleges around the world and speak on panels. So anyways, this big corporation wanted to hire him to come in as their keynote speaker for their big event. Mm-hmm. And I think it was in Las Vegas, Nevada. And there's gonna be like thousands of people there for this industry conference. And they wanted this billionaire to come in to be the speaker because they were gonna leverage him with all the media and people like, oh my gosh, you brought so-and-so in. Well, that quarter, he told his staff, I don't care what media contacts me, what corporation contacts me, the answer is no. I'm focused this quarter. I'm not doing any media appearances, no speaking engagements, no guest appearances, nothing. Mm-hmm. So one of these companies went off and they offered him $1 million to come in and speak, to be on a panel for 45 minutes. He turned it down. They offered him $2 million. Then they went up to $5 million US, and the answer was still no. Because to him, as he gave his word, he was focused. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing about CEOs and executives is we're meticulous on focus, and also is regards to our calendar. Another thing is scheduling thinking time. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. High performance CEOs, high performance leaders, men and women, will schedule thinking time. Like later today, I'm going on a hike in a few hours mm-hmm. to think about some mergers and acquisitions I'm involved with on some stuff I'm working on right now in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm involved with a bunch of M&A activity. So I schedule thinking time in my calendar just to process and digest and come up with questions and look at things all different angles, different viewpoints, points of views. So another thing is scheduling thinking time. Another thing is working out, physical fitness, drinking lots of water, exercising, getting proper rest is mm-hmm. important. Another thing is high performance people, in the morning will have a cold shower. In the evening have a hot shower if they're retiring before nighttime. Mm-hmm. A cold shower or jumping into a cold pool or the ocean or a lake or river or stream or waterfall just energizes you with cold water. Taking cold water and splashing on your face. Some of us remember, late at night we're driving home from some function and it's like, oh, I'm getting tired. What do? We turn the air conditioner on. Right. Or we stick our head out the window if it's wintertime. Depends where you live in the world. If it's cold outside, mm-hmm. right? Another thing is too, having written goals or personal promises. It's so important that when I ask people, what is it you really, really, really want in your life? Mm-hmm. 9 out of 10 times, Sakar, people say, I don't know. It's not. And here's the thing to consider. With a goal or with a dream or personal promise, it's got to be specific, it's got to be measurable, and it's got to be actionable. I'll share with you, as I know we're running short on time, I'll share with you why most people never achieve their goals or New Year's resolutions.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Number one is their goal. Let's say, for example, let's use weight. Okay. Mm-hmm. First thing is people say, I want to lose 15 pounds. Okay. Mm-hmm. So first thing I do is I coach people on their language. You never want to lose something because the human mind wants to go find it again. So rather than say I'm going to lose 15 pounds, I'm going to release 15 pounds. Just notice how you mm-hmm. feel. Releasing or losing. Right. You want to release 15 pounds of weight. Mm-hmm. Next thing I want to look at, so if you said to me, Darren, I want to release 15 pounds and I want to do it by July 15th. I'm like, okay, great. July 15th, I'd say by when? By 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, July 15th. Okay, sure. So I know it's July 15th, it's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone on the North American continent. It's specific, it's measurable, actionable. Step number one. Step number two is you must link a strategy to releasing 15 pounds of weight. So I would look at your calendar and I would see that Sakar is working out 4 days a week at a fitness center. He's doing Pilates, he's doing yoga, doing martial arts, doing weights, doing cardio, running, jogging, exercising, right? Swimming, biking. right?
Sure.
His life would demonstrate to me, if I was a fly on the wall looking at Sakar's life, I would see Sakar in action. His life would demonstrate to me that he's got 4 days a week that he's taking as serious of his health, that he's working out.
Right.
Third, so that's number 2 is strategy. Number 3 is accountability. So if I saw Sakar each day, at the end of each day, taking a picture of him being on the elliptical or him jogging or running or doing weights or doing physical fitness, and at the end of the day, he's taking a selfie and he's text messaging his accountability partner, accountability buddy, or personal trainer or coach or mentor or mastermind team, or putting on social media as accountability, saying, hey, I'm doing a 30-day challenge. I want to release 15 pounds. I just want to be full disclosure. I want public accountability, right? The wall of shame if I don't follow through. I just want to be held accountable. Okay.
Awesome.
So number 1 is specific, measurable, actionable result or goal, I should say. It's going to be specific, measurable, and actionable. Number 2 is the strategy. Number 3 is accountability. So when I sit down with people that are raising money, or I'm interviewing to hire CEOs or executives to come work on some of the companies and teams I'm involved with, I start to ask questions, how they solve problems, how they deal with difficult situations, how they deal with conflict and confrontation, how do they, how many hours a day do they sleep? How do they sleep? I'm just becoming inquiry into discovery of asking questions, right? And we're gonna be mindful too, there's human resources we gotta look at in terms of certain things, but I wanna understand that human being of what makes them tick, but also if they have goals or they have dreams or they have targets, are they specific, measurable, and actionable? Do they have a strategy linked to that goal or that target? And is there an accountability buddy or person or people involved in the accountability? If those 3 are not linked, guess what? The chances of them achieving that goal or New Year's resolution are very greatly decreased.
That's awesome. That's a lot of great advice, Darren, there. I hope people got the undertones that I think you were going leaps and leaps, because this conversation is not about, hey, how to journal or how to set goals. It's a much higher than that. And I hope the audience got the undertones there, where, you've been saying different things, but you have poured a lot of value, where you are pretty much outlining some of the success principles that we go by. So it is my honor and pleasure to have you, Darren. Please share with us, how audience can learn more about you.
Sure. You can follow me online. There's not a lot of information about me because most of my stuff is offline in groups, but there's 2 websites I'll give people. First one is DarrenJacklin.com. You just go DarrenJacklin.com or Google Darren Jacklin. So it's DarrenJacklin.com. And the second link is our foundation, which is link. It's it's ly2nk.org. ly2nk.org. And that's our private family foundation committed to global philanthropy. And currently right now, we're building a new high school over in the slums of Uganda, East Africa, for 328 people that live in a rural remote village and 111 children. And so we're going to build a 30-acre sustainable community for these people over there and make a difference in their lives. And maybe sometimes people want to come hang out. We do humanitarian trips. Once this COVID-19 lockdown lifts around, we're going to resume going back on humanitarian trips twice a year. And we plan 6 months in advance, and people get a chance to come with us and meet with like-minded people from all over the world, from diverse backgrounds. And you get a chance to be a part of people and have a lot of fun on a 2-week humanitarian trip. So we go do humanitarian trips over in Africa. So we go do humanitarian work as volunteers. And then we also, for a couple of days, go do an African safari and have a great time and create some great experiences. That's some great conversations.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I can see your passion for philanthropy as well. I mean, you're very passionate about those. So I congratulate you on that. Thank you, Darren. Unfortunately, we just have just about that much time for our show, but I'd love to have you back on some similar topics. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and learn from your insights. Thank you for your time today, Darren.
And thank you so much, Sakar, for dedicating your time and energy to putting on these podcasts to really serve humanity, really get your heart. And I know we just met, and I really appreciate you for the difference that you're making. And I know to schedule podcasts and get guests on here is not only easy with people's calendars and busy lives. So I want to really acknowledge you for taking this on and being in action with that and being a difference maker. So thank you as well.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's been fun. Thank you, Darren. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at premiumcashflow.com to sign up for weekly updates, research articles, and more. We will see you again for another great interview with an expert guest.